Evan?
Woo. All right, peace, peace. This is not information number 7 with Bernadette Worst Deaths, aka Mega Robinson, Robinson Mega. I like to say his name all different ways. Kristen Norris, who's got to go because she got studying to do, and Maurice Shelton, who is here but not here. Yeah, so this episode we are going to talk about Black fathers, particularly in Japan, but also worldwide, globally. The inspiration of this particular talk is a video that just came out on Black Experience Japan, where a lady who lives in New York but was raised in Japan talked about how she did not speak to her father until she was 12 or 13. And she lived with her father. So it wasn't like he wasn't there. Basically, he didn't speak any Japanese. Her first language was Japanese. And so they communicated via the mom. And the way that she put it was because they were in the military, there was not a lot of communication. I mean, it seemed like he was there, but he didn't learn the language. The kids didn't learn English until they were in middle school. So pretty much for the first, 12, 13 years of her life, she didn't speak to her father, which for me is kind of wild because I have a 10-year-old. So want to talk about that. And that led to some conversations about absentee fathers and the role of the father and or not in some of our lives. So let's what about we kick it off with little intros? Anyone? Bernie, you want to go first? How you feeling?
Uh,
10 seconds. No.
we- um. So yeah, my name is Bernadette, y'all. Hello, hello. Am I answering the question or just like introducing
No,
me?
how you feeling? Yeah, what's up?
How I'm feeling? Um, I feel cold. It's New York City, where I'm in New York City right now, and it's a storm. It is particularly terrible. Yeah, Kristen. So I'm like freezing. So I have my tea with me, and I'm wearing like 5 layers under here because
In your
it's
house?
freezing. Yes, in my house. Like
Yes.
my mom like boxed up like all the corners of the windows because sometimes like air could still like get through. So like even though she's done that, it's like below freezing or below zero. So it's like cold even with everything else boarded up. So I don't know if it's a black thing, probably not, but like you know how like you heat the oven on but you're not using it, but you open it so like it like heats everything. So that's what she did. So I'm hoping that the hot air comes here. So that's where I'm at right now. I'm gonna start to let other people explain how they're feeling as I think about the role or lack of role my father has in my life.
For sure. Mega, how you feeling?
Peace. I'm good, man. I think I mentioned before on the podcast my little headache issues that I've been going through, but I've been all right. I'm cooling today. I'm Robinson Mega Late Show podcast, Odd Cipher Divine, Moto Nice, lots of things. But yeah, I'm all right. I'm thinking that the opening the oven to heat the house is a black thing, but it's largely a black thing because it's a poor thing. Like we, we used to do it too, but once we got a little bit of money, that central air, you know what I mean? But yeah,
Put the pot on the stove with the water though. You got
is
do
that a
that too.
technique?
Get the steam jumping off.
We do the same thing too.
Oh,
Like
a question too though, Bernadette. You said it's below zero, so you talking about Fahrenheit or
I knew he was
Celsius?
I
Fahrenheit.
knew he was
Okay, damn, it's super cold then if it's below zero
Japan,
Prob-
Fahrenheit.
Dr.
I'm
Fam.
probably exaggerating. I haven't like looked at the weather, but it feels below. Like it feels the negatives,
Y'all got
or at
snow?
least it's yeah. We got snow. We got snow, sleet,
Okay,
hail, all in one.
No.
all right.
Kristen, who are you? How you feeling?
Hey y'all, this is Kristen Norris. I'm from the DMV area. Currently in animation school and graphic design school, so please watch out for that web comic I have coming up. Um, just like Bernadette, there is a lot of snow and a lot of hail and all that other extra stuff that comes with cold weather. So it is really cold. That's why the snow is sticking. So yeah, like, do you want me to state my opinion on Black
Not
fathers?
yet. Not yet. Hold on. Maurice, How you doing? Oh yeah, Kristen. Kristen gotta go. Maurice, shout out to everyone. Oh,
Yeah.
Maurice, your hair looks amazing, by the way. Who are
Oh,
you
thank you.
and how you feeling?
Forehead gang.
My pineal gland is popping right now. Yo, Maurice Shelton, educator, father out of Kawasaki, Japan, by way of San Diego, California, and College Park, GA. How am I feeling? Yeah, I think y'all know I ride my bike, so it was raining earlier today, so I was like really trying to be cautious and trying not to get sick. So I got my mask on, and yeah, so I'm good. Just maintaining, struggling, trying to keep, revolutionary spirit alive in my heart.
All right, cool. So yeah, so like before, because Kristen got to go, so we want to get her opinion, and then we'll let everybody jump in. So yeah, we were talking. I don't know, Kristen, if you saw the video from Black Experience Japan. I kind of introed that, but what do you think about the role of fathers? What have you seen in Japan with your experiences? What have you seen in the DMV? General opinions.
So thoughts comparing, I guess, fathers I've seen in Japan versus here. So when I went to Japan, from what I can tell, a lot of the nuclear style families will have like the mom being the stay-at-home mom, like prepping the house, like taking care of the kids. There are some women who actually like work in their fields and like work at companies, but that's not like the norm usually. Usually after they get married, they stay home and become housewives. That is changing slowly, but it is changing. And I'm starting to see more women now that are entering the workforce and kind of sticking with their company. But to be honest, that's kind of how it's been for the most part. And the dad comes in because he's usually like the breadwinner. He's the one that stays with his company for life, because in Japan, I heard that like usually when you enter into a company, like that's like your mainstay, like you stay there for like the remainder of your lifetime. Like it's very taboo to switch companies. And because of that, rarely when I was tutoring kids like in homes, did I see the dad. He would either come home like very late at night or he would be working overtime. So I like rarely ever saw him. So I didn't really see much of like the fathers interacting with their kids unless they had like a weekend off or like time off. So to be honest, like I feel like for Japanese fathers, their role is to just be more financially supportive rather than maybe emotionally or like, socially supportive of their kids. And that's just what I've seen so far. I'm sure there are other fathers that break the stereotype, but that's just the overall generalization I have. Compared to fathers here, where did I begin? And now I will say this, my dad was in my life until I think I was like just started college, and then like him and my mom divorced and I rarely saw him because of course they like went their separate ways. And I do think that especially for like the Black community, having a father figure is extremely important, because you can see the lack thereof. Having like a very good and supportive father figure has led to, mass incarceration of Black males and like them not being able to understand how to function normally in society, like, and even their like relationships with women, like, because there's been no substantial father figure in there, like telling them how to approach women decently, how to like engage with someone on a deeper level. Like a lot of times, you basically get broken families and the mother just, being a single mother, and then the dad kind of doing whatever he wants to do because that's what he saw his dad do. Like, it's kind of like a generational curse, like, oh, my dad wasn't there for me. Like, and so that's all I know how to do. And it just keeps on repeating and repeating and repeating. And there are men that do break that cycle, but unfortunately, like that's not the majority. And so I think it's very important for Black fathers, especially, to step up to the plate and really show their sons like how to be like quote unquote a man and just how to function like in society as like, a Black father. It's kind of sad too, because like I have a lot of cousins that were raised by like single mothers, and even their relationship with other males, like you can see it, like they always feel like some type of like aggression or hostility towards like other guys as well. And I'm just like, well, why do you feel that way? Like you're both guys. He's like, man, it's just like, it's just a dude thing. And I'm just like, I don't know, maybe the lack of like, potential father figure in your life also has you suspecting other guys of doing you harm. But I really think that the Black father has a crucial role to play, but he's just not there to play it. And for a multitude of reasons, the war on crime definitely didn't help with that at all. Like a lot of fathers weren't there, they were locked up. So there are many reasons for that, but I hope that that can be, elevated, or that problem can be kind of.
Word. So you staying with us or you gotta go?
Gotta deuce.
All right. So peace, Kristen. We will see you next time. Thank you for your comments.
Kristen.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Yeah, so anybody else want to chime in about the video? Did you see the video? What has been your experience? I do want to start with like the whole ideal of fathers, particularly foreign fathers or Japanese fathers in Japan, because most of us work with those populations, and then Bernie, you will be there, and you may have some, insight on that. But I mean, what do you guys think? I mean, you're raising kids too, as well in Japan. So, do you find it difficult to keep up with the English or communicate?
I'll go.
Go for it. It's a conversation. Y'all can jump in. Don't.
Yeah, it's a conversation.
I'm trying to just chop it up.
I'm trying to be polite and stuff,
Oh yeah.
No, I got feedback before. They were like, man, just get to the topic, man. Y'all just need to talk, man. Y'all be chopping it up too much. I'm like, shit. I'm gonna just go then. All right. No. So, yeah. I mean,
leave Maurice alone. No.
No, I got a lot of thoughts on the video just because I check many of the boxes of I think the young lady's name was Spencer. Aya Spencer. Yeah, I tried to reach out to her actually because when she had mentioned that her father wasn't there, I made a few assumptions because she had mentioned they were based in Misawa.
Yeah.
And I had some family that were based in Misawa. If they're Misawa, that like maybe Air Force. So that means that ain't gonna be there just because he's serving Empire. He's a military guy. So Kristen had just mentioned there's a multitude of reasons why the Black father is not present in many familial units. And I think I would be remiss in not mentioning the fact that it is a deliberate. I've observed this, and many people before me have observed that there has been a war on the Black male specifically when it comes to maintaining power, maintaining colonial power, maintaining imperial power. For me, like coming here to Japan and seeing a lot of the same gender roles and familial dynamics being replicated here is wild. Just because this is a post quote unquote post-modern neoliberal capitalistic society here in Japan, where 50 years ago you could have one man, one income supporting a whole household, or maybe more, like I think we touched on before.
Yeah.
But that's not the reality now. That reality became far more apparent earlier on in America. Like, so for example, like when people talk about, oh, there needs to be a Black man in the house, it's like, yeah, a Black man needs to be in the house. Or else we have single mothers raising kids, and that leads to dysfunctional children and da 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 da. It's like, well, that's always, pretty much been the case. Black women, especially, have always worked, inside and outside of the house since like the beginning. Like if we're talking about America, they've always
Maurice,
been
do you
workers.
find like your own personal experience? Are you finding that you are just expected to just work, and not hang out with your kids?
No, man. Like I'm about to air out my dirty laundry. Well,
don't do it. Or Mega, would you?
No, I'm about to do it now. No, it's okay. No, I'll say this real quick and then I'll let y'all talk. Like for me, like I was fortunate enough to partner with someone who does not fully believe that a woman's place should be fully inside the house. So you do what you can, where you can, and how you can.
Right.
And my wife is Japanese, so I think it's assumed that she'll be taking on a lot of the child rearing stuff. But I had my father in my life. My parents divorced, but my dad stuck around. Even though he was military, like he got out of the military, like he was still there. So I know what it means to have a man in the house that I can call my father.
Right.
And even myself out. So yeah, like for me, I would never give up that role because my ego's too big to say, you know what, I'm gonna let somebody else raise my kids. I couldn't stomach it. So even if I partner with somebody again, like that I don't like, I'm like, yo, I'm gonna stick around for the kids. Like I'll be there. Like I don't care. I don't give a shit what society says. Like for me, and the numbers point it out too, like Black fathers are mainly, they're very present in people, their children's lives, more so than their counterparts, white or Hispanic. So yeah, for me, I like people like my partner, especially, she knew that I told her straight up, I'm gonna be there, come hell or high water. So,
No, that's what's up. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, Mega. I mean, you working lots. Do you feel like that expectation is the same, that you don't have to be there for certain things, or?
I mean, there's an understanding, right? Look, there's a lot of ways to approach this in regards to traditional gender roles, the colonial idea of the nuclear family structure that have changed. It's very new for Japan, but one of the things now is that, like, you have to also acknowledge the unpaid labor that housewives are doing, and a lot of people simply don't have the income to allow that traditional family structure to be maintained. My wife has to work in order for us to have the things that we do and live a relatively well off, or our needs being met. So like I was having a difficult time trying to pin down exactly what we're gonna talk about here. The idea that I must work is something that's very clear. But my wife and I also have an understanding that I'm not going to be there because of work at this time. But as a who I am, I'm going to try to be there for my child as much as possible, because I think that is of tremendous importance. I don't necessarily think that the role that I play and the input that I play is something that is a requirement to raise a healthy, both physically and mentally healthy child. I think another woman could do it. My wife could do it by herself if she had that intention. It kind of depends on the person. So like I don't know, that video was just strange to me, because the aspect of communication is something that to me presupposes it's something that comes before the idea of your economic standpoint. Like if you're it don't matter if you live in a box or you're in a post-apocalyptic world, you make time to communicate with your child your wisdom, your knowledge, and things that you feel are going to help that child become a better person. So
Yeah.
that's the thing that's bugged out to me about the video. It's like whether or not you off working all the time, it's like there's things that you can't be there for everything. You can't be there for the school play sometimes, and I understand that, because you got to put food on the table for later. But I mean, if you in the house with your daughter at any point, and you still not making a conscious effort to communicate through sign language, through facial, you know what I mean, like through anything, I mean, I feel like that's a failure on that person. So,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, and Maurice, I mean, I know Bernie, you can hop in about speaking Creole. I know that's something that really is an experience for you, but I do want to like pull it back. So like the communication aspect. So in the video, really, you could see it in her. There was an obvious issue that she was not able to communicate with her father. Like she even talked about saying she was sleepy. That was one thing that she brought out. And I wonder, I don't know if that has to do with being a father or having a partner. I mean, obviously raising a single kid would make that difficult, because if you're only speaking one language, or you feel like the importance of speaking one language versus the other language, something's got to give. You're going to miss out on something. But yeah, this idea that you don't have time to communicate with your kid. I mean, it sounds like Maurice is making a conscious effort. Meg is making a conscious effort. Bernie, you want to talk about that?
I could talk about it from the language perspective, because I grew up in a single parent household, like my mom, and my mom and my dad separated, I believe, before I was even born. But I think he came to the hospital, but it was kind of like that was it. So for her, like, both my parents speak Creole, so they're both Haitian, right? But and my mom speaks Creole and French, a little bit of Spanish, English, and stuff like that. And so she came to America at a very young age. So for her, like, English was very important because, she's trying to make a life, a career in America. But because she was a single parent and she has to do everything by herself, go to work, put food on the table, as well as clean the house, take care of me and my brother, everything, like everything was put on her. What had to give was the language. And so for me, as I'm growing up, like, yeah, she could have taught me Creole words, like, help, like, teach me enough to order food for her if she just didn't have the time to do it or whatever. But I think that she saw that, like, English was most important because we were in America. And as I got older, and like right now, I'm like trying to like, I'm on a spiritual path. I'm learning to be on a spiritual path, and part of that is connecting to my ancestors. And I remember when I first started, my first worry was, would I be? And it was kind of like, now I see it as a silly question, but I think it was a very important thing for me, where it's like, would I be able to connect with my ancestors, because I don't have that language? And not only my ancestors, but also like my ancestry, my history, understanding like Haiti in a much deeper way. And I think for her, like, she was able, obviously she had to communicate because we're in America, like, she knows English, she's gonna have to help me with English. But in terms of Creole, she didn't had the luxury to teach me because she was so busy. And I think that because of not having that language, I miss out on understanding her on a much more cultural, deeper level. And by
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, and by not understanding like this cultural aspect, I'm like missing out on like a very important part of my identity. Because now, like, if I were to go to Haiti, I wouldn't know what to do. Right. Like I know like the place that she was born, just the location, but like we don't talk about her history in this way at all. And so because of that, I feel like I am Haitian, but I'm not like fully Haitian because I don't have that um cultural connection. Like, I eat the food, I listen to the music, but I don't know what the music is saying. I barely know how to pronounce the words of the food that I'm eating. And I don't blame her at all for not being able to teach me, because I understand that, like, because of being a single parent, like, there was only so much that she could do.
Right.
So basically, she raised you. You
Yeah.
obviously you doing your thing, but as far as like identity and language, that's Mega. And I mean,
I share kind of a similar experience with that, but I wonder if it's a little bit different in a way. My mom is Filipino. She's born and raised in the Philippines. She was one of the first people in her family to make it over to the United States. And I grew up with her communicating with her friends in various Filipino dialects. And I also grew up with the food, but it was never imparted to me to try to learn it. She never tried to teach it to me. And I think especially that's something that's common in Filipino culture, at least it was, because they are so colonialized in their mind that the impression is that to come to America and be as much of an American as you can be. And this is one of the reasons why Filipinos are one of the kind of racial groups that or ethnic groups that come in, and they're most likely to assimilate of all other East Asian cultures. It's not Filipinos with Filipinos at the school lunch table. It's Filipinos with the blacks and the whites, and we do that. And so my mom never taught it to me because I think she just wanted me to be like hella American. But I also have that point where it's like she was able to communicate with me, so it kind of misses the whatever's happening with this lady in the
Right.
Black Experience Japan comes from.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, she
I
was
thought I saw
bilingual.
her post on the site though. Like,
Yeah.
I kind of feel like we should have reached out to her a little bit more if we were going to, I know Maurice tried to, but to get the specifics of it, because this is her side of the story and not her dad's, and also it's not that much information to go off of.
It's
So
confusing because I was,
don't
I
know.
Yeah,
mean,
no,
yeah.
I think that he threw some softballs. That's what I was saying. Like he threw some softballs. So it was like, yeah, like he didn't really press that issue of like, okay, when you say you didn't communicate with your daddy, does that mean like you weren't talking to him, or like he just like would speak? So for me, this was struck me. I'm like, okay, I know with my kids right now, I can speak to them in English and they'll respond back to me in Japanese. But I know they completely understand it. It's passive, they are passively gaining fluency in English, but they are not there like a child that is raised exclusively in an English environment would be, but they could get, they're flexible, because they're not
Maurice,
that old yet.
do you speak Japanese? How is
I
your
speak a
Japanese?
little bit, yeah. It's terrible, but I speak enough, to get by. So, so like for example, if my sons fight, kinka shinaide, like, don't do that. Like, I can give commands. I can say, and
That sounds
they'll
pretty
get
good,
that. No, but I mean, I practice enough because I mimic my wife, or like I mimic, other people that I see at like my work sites, like, you can't do that. But then I'll reinforce it with English, so they'll know like from the tone of my voice, like when I speak in English, like what I'm trying to say. So like I'm communicating all the time, even though it's, so that's, like when I tried to reach out to her, that's the main thing that was popping up in my head was the fact that, even, because I think she mentioned she had a sister. Like, yeah, I just can't see it being plausible that they didn't understand at all or weren't able to communicate at all with their father, especially if he's a military guy and they were moving around with her. And, they were taking the Air Force, the free trip that you can get, like the Space Aid trip that you can get. I'm like, yeah, like Daddy, I'm sure he spoke something, in Japanese, just a little bit, maybe not a lot, but they were talking, so yeah, I'm gonna keep trying to reach out to her though.
It did kind of make it seem as though like anytime there was communication, the dad be like, he would go to the mom like, yo, tell them to stop, and the mom would say it in Japanese. And that's just, to me, that's a little bit absurd. And maybe it was just, her communicating on that day that didn't really kind of fully flesh out the kind of specifics of their communication. But it sounds kind of nuts to me too. I had two dads, I got two dads, and part of my, your childhood memory also colors things as a certain way as well, right? And that could also be the way it's playing out in your head now. Like when I think, my stepdad is the youngest of 8, come from a poor backcountry, in the boonies family with no father figure. So that kind of colors the way that he knew how to father, which he didn't, because he didn't have that specific father figure. He had brothers, but it's a different dynamic than a father-son relationship. So my memory colors my interactions with my stepdad in a different way until I become an adult. I feel as though we weren't really communicating, and I didn't have that kind of idealized family, like dad's going to throw the baseball and teach you the birds and bees. I know I didn't get a lot of that, but I'm certain he was communicating with me and teaching me things both actively and passively through our interactions. But my childhood memory wants to color it a certain way, and maybe that's kind of what's happening with this woman as well.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've seen it where that has happened. Like the father is definitely trying to communicate with the kid. I've seen this in school, and the kid is just non-responsive. And then the father goes to the mother like, hey, and then the mother, and then the kid, it's almost like a protest. The kid protest. And I think some of that is because of the environment being an environment, and then I've seen it where I've never met the father. Like, and so you kind of question, is that even, what kind of relationship that is? But yeah, I agree with y'all. It was because it just really made me angry. I would say, like, because we work so hard, and obviously my wife is, especially my wife, because my wife is bilingual, and his wife, or the mother of the lady, she spoke English and Japanese. So I just really was like, what, it's almost intentional that you're not communicating, or it felt that
Yeah.
way. So I
That's
think,
what it
yeah,
is.
I don't know.
I'm sure there's some other layers to the onion that we don't know. So like, yeah, maybe we can update this like once if she decides to hit me back. I was trying to be nice.
Yeah, the one thing,
Yeah, I was like, yeah.
and I think even for Bernie too, like, I mean, it is like, I look at my own family, and I'm talking about my Japanese family. There is this thing where it's almost a joke, like the father doesn't go to certain things. And like, it was very shocking to me with, I was like, what do you mean you're not going? They're like, I'm not going. Or my wife even said like, oh yeah, my father didn't really go to any of my, activities when I was growing up. And it's normalized. And I was just like, yo, like, that's not cool, man. But I wonder
Yeah,
where
yo, real talk,
culturally,
real quick.
yeah.
Funny thing I just saw, like, so my sons just had a birthday, right? I took them to the Ampama Museum. Me and my wife took my twin sons to the Ampama Museum.
I mean,
So
look at that joy
in
on
the
your face, bro. You happy, right? Who
yeah,
would
yeah,
deny themselves of that,
yeah. But this is the funny thing. I counted on maybe two hands how many fathers I saw sitting in the parking lot waiting on their kid and the mama to come back and join them. I was just like what's going? I mean, I saw a bunch of fathers inside too, but I was like, yeah, I see a couple of dudes just sitting out in the van, just chilling. I'm like, what y'all doing? Like, like, but it's normal, like and for me, like going to school function, like you just said, like I know, like except for maybe Undokai at like the Hoikuen, like I'm the only father. I've been the only father, like, and then I'm black, so it's like like special cases, like, yeah, I'm like trying not to be self-conscious, like, what you doing here? Ain't you working? I'm like, no, I took time off of work, or
They
like
will
made
ask
my
you,
schedule fit. Yeah, they like, what do you do? I'm
like,
like,
why
I
you
work,
here?
but like I'm like I'm here for my boys, man. Like, what you mean? What the fuck you mean? Like, like I'm a father. Like, I want to see my kids too, So yeah, it's
I
crazy.
start to wonder exactly how much of, because I see that like lack of male figure in my kids' lives all the time, in probably the same type of way you do. I start to wonder exactly how much of that is, just the kind of parameters of late stage capitalism and the dad having to work. How much is it Japanese culture of overworking? And I wonder how that family dynamic was, 80 years ago, before people were wearing suits and working 60-hour work weeks, because it's so strange to me that it's become very accepted for the father to play this very limited role and is seen as just a primary breadwinner. And sometimes that's the only capacity that they're held to, even when it comes to like ideas of monogamy and showing up at the kids, damn sports day. So it's just it's a weird, I don't want to say it's weird. It's a strange dynamic to me. And it's one that I'm curious about. And regardless of culture, I just believe that if a family and a community should play a very strong and active role in raising its children. And so, you know how it is in the States for a lot of Black families, the men get incarcerated. There's all types of different dynamics that cause them to be gone. And sometimes we see the direct fallout from that ends up in a negative way. So you're not going to catch me out here, letting my daughter just learn the ways of the world through only my wife and YouTube. Shit.
Never.
Yeah, can't happen, man.
Bro,
I might not be
your
able to
point,
take every
YouTube
single
is
day, but
good. YouTube is good.
Man, gotta give them YouTube kids, man. That YouTube is a whoo.
I mean, you learn a lot when there's not somebody there who's going to like actively teach you. And you have a mother who can't because she's working all the time. Like you got to find it somehow, somewhere. I think
Yeah.
I'm all right. I'm still learning, but I'm getting there.
Good. Yeah, man, my
Yeah,
father.
right.
So yeah, my father wasn't. My father didn't go to jail. Nothing. He just wasn't there. My parents just got divorced when they were 2, or when I was 2, not then. But yeah, so I think like when I was thinking about having kids, I mean, me and Maya talk about this all the time. Like we were very conscious, and there was a lot of maybe unlearning that I had to do just based on my previous experience. So like when Maya, we tried to get her to learn Japanese in California, like she went to Saturday school, and we got the books and we got Ampama, all these things, right? Like we were doing, but she was the same. I think it's the same way like Maurice saying, it's like she could understand it, and her mother was speaking Japanese to her, but she couldn't really speak back. And so we decided, like, one of the many reasons we decided to move to Japan. So I think like in that way we had an advantage because she did live in the States, and her world is big, and I think for some kids also too, like their world is just not that big. So even when they're learning English, maybe they don't place the importance on it, which was also very interesting because going back to that military thing, they could go back to the States, whenever they wanted to. So yeah, I mean, I was just like, I found it really I don't know, it was just puzzling. But like I said, like even in an international school working there, I've had kids come and not, I mean, foreign parent, American, French, whatever, and they only speak in Japanese. And when you talk to the parent, and mainly it's been fathers, they're not speaking Japanese. And I'm like, well, how are you even communicating with your child? And they're like, yeah, I know. And like they try to call, when they call home. I had this one girl, she came and to school, and she couldn't talk to her grandparents because her grandparents were in Canada. And I mean, she was what, 5th grade, 4th grade or something. So like this whole time she just was avoiding it. And then the mom, she spoke English, she spoke Japanese. The dad didn't speak, he spoke a little Japanese, but mostly French and English. And it really triggered me. I was like, yo, like this is happening in a lot of different places in a lot of different ways. And I think like even we have to deal with that. Like, I work, but I work at 1. So like, I walk Maya to school, I, do all this stuff, clean the house. Our dynamic is totally different. My wife, she works in the traditional hours. So I'm like house husband, most of the time,
House husband, cooking papa.
You know what I'm saying? Cooking pasta. Pasta anyway. But yeah, so like, but I know that because my father wasn't there, like I have to be there. Like, I gotta be in her face. So I don't know.
I don't have all distinctly Black features either. And my daughter has even less. Her hair is super straight and she's very Japanese passable. But I feel like it's particularly important for the Black father to be involved there. If he's the Black person, the Black parent to be involved there with the Japanese, with the kid living in Japan, because you need to kind of express this other dynamic of their entire being that is being kind of, oppressed and assaulted and facing adversity at almost every corner in Japanese culture. So as raising a little half Black kid, I feel like man, like you must impart some jewels, like just dealing with like your hair is different. Like the Japanese mom can't really punctuate that in the same way, I think. So I don't know, man. I feel kind of like, the conversation, we could have had a much shorter conversation or detailed conversation about a different part of this if we just communicated with that lady, with that woman real quick. But man, what a strange dynamic. I was so mad after watching that video at the dad. I was like, yo, I'll beat your, hey, don't ever let me.
They say he in Osaka. She says he in Osaka now. So like maybe he speak Japanese now. Like he retired or whatever, So
let's get the dad on the podcast.
Reach out to
let's
his
get the
ass,
dad
man.
on the podcast. He don't have to. I don't know if he has to learn Japanese at this point. Especially
I was about to say, man, like, and Meg probably know about this too, man. Like, yo, Paul, you never been military, right? Or associated with military, right?
No, my father was in Air Force. My,
I
got family, Army, stuff like
that. I was about to say, I mean, you from the Midwest, man. Somebody military. You Black,
a lot of people. But that was the thing. Like people would ask me, they're like, "Oh, you met your wife? You must be in the military." Like, nope, I met her.
Exactly.
At the
right.
I met her at the club.
I met at the club, boy. Like, I got that all the time, man. Like because I met my wife in Atlanta But like we moved, I don't know if I told the story before, man, but like my wife and I, when we moved to San Diego is a Navy and like Marine town. Like, so like when they see me and they can see an Asian woman,
They're like,
you're just like,
military.
obviously you're military. But I'm like, no, you're wrong, white person. You're wrong for your assumptions. I do belong here, but not because of the military. But no, I think that little piece of information too, the fact that he's in the military, because I worked on a military base and I know plenty of people that pride themselves on being cloistered in the base environment in the American Empire, been here for 30, 40 years, don't speak a lick of Japanese except like Ohio and like maybe like Doi Tashima, they speak like the basic stuff like good morning, like Ohio and thank you, arigato. That's it. They don't speak shit when it comes to Japanese, and they are okay with that. Because also, I mean, I experienced this too when I was inside that bubble. I could say it's a bubble. Anybody that's actually been a language learner of a learner of a second language, and this applies to any learning. It could be martial arts, it could be a new sport, it could be just any new hobby. Like, you have to get over your ego and your pride first when you fail over and over and over again. So I think a lot of people, especially like if you're talking about people that conform to like the standard, prototypical like strong stoic male that doesn't talk about their feelings, and they're never wrong, they're authoritarian, they're the number one voice in the house, end all be all, alpha and omega in their house, and nobody's gonna question them. Daddy, you wrong. You said that wrong. Like, I can't abide by that. Like, I know guys and people like that. They're like, if I'm trying to sit there and learn Japanese and have my kid making fun of me, I'm gonna just not speak Japanese, or my wife clowning me because they gonna clown your ass. Like, I get clowned all the time. I'm like, well, I had to like swallow that. I'm like, if I really want to like communicate with my kids, man, I like I said before, I have the egg on my face, man. But for some people, if you, whether they NCO, they got a commission, or they long time, like they got their E7, E8 or whatever, they're not. I know that particular like profile of like long time military people, they're just gonna do what they're gonna do and be comfortable there, and like that communication will suffer unless, of course, the kids, for some of those people, like the kids that are children of multicultural marriages, whether or not they're Japanese or the wife is Japanese or not, if they're around other like multicultural kids, and maybe Megha can chime in on this, like, that can give you a grounding that you might not be able to get just from that one Black parent. So that's my fear too. Like y'all mentioned, like, I'm like, yo, like, I can't imagine not being able to impart some of the knowledge that I have as a Black person, just in general, not as a Black man, but just as a Black person, in the Black experience and the history that comes behind my appearance and how it might be marginalized to my sons. My sons don't have hair like me. My sons ask me all the time, like, why your hair like that? I'm like, cause that's how I was born, and it's okay. You got hair that's a little curly, that's fine. My twins, their hair is a little bit more straight. I'm like, imparting to them that it's okay to be different. Like, you got to hammer that home all the time, because they're getting assailed at all corners, at all fields. Like, you're different, like getting called chocolate or getting called poop or getting called something related to them being darker. Like, it happens, it happens like in this. And I think, Tracy had mentioned it too, like one of his articles, like, yeah, like, you're not always around. It's like, it seeps in, like that anti-Blackness, especially for some kids that don't actually feel Black, like they, for my kids, the three younger ones, I mean, they're culturally Japanese pretty much, because we were in America, 3 years ago, almost a little over 3 years ago, but they're 6 and 5 now. So it's like, they don't remember when they were 2 years old and 3 years old, like they were speaking English. Like, they hear now with like Japanese friends and acquaintances and teachers, and everybody's, talking to them in Japanese. They want to know what's going on with like Kimetsu no Yaiba or like Shingeki no Kyojin, all the other stuff that's cool, Japanese stuff. American stuff is like only because at my pleasure, like I got like put in their face. You know, I put in the group chat, like, yeah, like I let them listen to like R&B, like New Jack Swing and stuff. Like it's bath time, so they know like I'm be putting some type of Black music on, so they have that in their and just in their background. So like Mega was saying, like your memories are colored by, you know, those little things. You know, it's floating in the background. You know, so I know just from my own experience and other people saying it's like, yeah, you know, I associate this thing with my dad, or I associate that thing with my mother or my grandmama, like Anita Baker Sunday morning. I got to get up and vacuum the damn floor. I got to clean up my house, you know, clean the toilet or something like that. Like, but I hear that music, I know it's time, you know, or like Saturday morning, I got to mow the lawn or some shit like that. You know, like I associate that with, you know, my father or my stepfather, like playing some type of music, you know, like that, those type of things I know sticks with, you know, a child's brain.
Which is wild, because she basically threw him under the bus.
Yeah.
Like she threw him all the way to like bam, and I was just like, I
wonder if there's any editing there.
What y'all was saying, like, you know, I started thinking about this, like being colored, like your history being colored or your childhood being colored, and I don't know, maybe I'm just like taking it to the extreme, but it just felt like she just threw him all the way under the bus.
Well, like Maurice just mentioned, it could be editing. There could be more to it, and it's important for us not to judge him too negatively based on a couple sound clips. You know, there's a whole story behind that. But you know, Maurice raised a really good point, I thought, when he was discussing how that strong male figure. I remember, you know, my father was very much that dude who was, you know, hard-headed and stubborn. That old military mentality. It's a whole different thing. And if her dad is around the same age as my stepdad or even my father, that's going to be very present. It's a very common personality trait, I think, that comes with that military service time. Closed off, strong, unwilling,
very parochial.
Not even just military, because I see that as like the standard male kind of essence that I see like people my age. So for those who watch and don't know, like I'm 23. Well, I'm now 23. And
so old. So wise.
So old.
Getting up there in age. Wow.
I'm moving, getting older. No, but what I noticed, like in the dating pool that I'm entering, a lot of the guys are like trying to get that sort of feeling of being like closed off, like feelings doesn't necessarily matter, it's just like a feminine thing, or like you would talk about it, like I remember I like talked to several guys and they were like, yeah, like, you know, like with you, like it'd be lovey-dovey, but if you have kids, like you got to be disciplinary, like that's the role of the father. And like I also have a stepfather who's been in my life more than my dad in other sense, like both my dad and my stepfather has been in my life in different ways, but it wasn't every single day that they were there, like they weren't that main presence in the house at all. But my stepdad is a lot more on that level, but he's not like hard-headed, like he's goofy, like he's kind of like Paul. But when there's some, I don't mean like,
I mean, I'm goofy.
You know,
it's good.
You go, you know, he's like you. He's like the Trinidadian version of you.
I don't want to dance when you say Trinidad, but I just want to keep it funky. You know what I'm saying?
I'm weak. No, he's like that. Like he always makes me laugh. You know, he would try to teach me about like, you know, guys that I got to watch out for and things like that. But it wasn't like on a consistent basis. But like I knew that like maybe more recently, I knew that like if there was something that was like really, really bothering me, like I can come to him. But I know that like I had to look at it in a certain way, like, because he's coming from like, you know, because he grew up in the Caribbean, kind of similar to what Mega was saying about his father. Like that's kind of like the upbringing of my stepfather. And like I think there's something about like the Caribbeanness also that's also a part of this.
Yeah, that's a can of worms right there. That's a can of worms right there.
Can of worms, because I know that like those who are in the Caribbean coming into America, that they're bringing in a lot of trauma and baggage, and they don't necessarily know how to. Not all of them, but a lot of them don't know how to alleviate that in a way that is productive for kids. So sometimes they're either like avoiding the situation or it's manifesting in a way that's traumatic. And so like I'm not saying like my stepdad necessarily, like I think my stepdad tries very hard to recognize that and mitigate that, but because I'm not his biological daughter, he's trying to, but I'm not necessarily his main focus, right? Like he will still be there. Like the laptop that I have right now, he's the one who bought it, like he's helped me in terms of like going to college and stuff like that. But like I know that there is a connection I don't necessarily have that he's not my step brother, he's my half brother. My half brother has with his actual father. And I think that for him, he, even though he is willing to talk about feelings and, communicate with me and all these different things, there is still like a slight barrier. I hope I'm making sense. Because there's a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
that's like
I mean,
compacted in.
go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just gonna say, because like I don't have kids and I'm not a black male in Japan. So like I didn't know how to like
Yeah, I mean,
enter
it's
into the
just,
conversation.
yeah, I start to feel like you bring up the military, right? And you think about Japan, and you think about war, right? And you think about at a certain level, they also experience this loss of males, right? For different reasons. Like if you look at the black community, we experience this and some and not always, because I sometimes feel like this is a truth, but it's also a myth. Like not every black family is lacking black fathers. I've actually met
Especially
more
now.
families with fathers than not. And I want to say like maybe like now it's different. Like when I was growing up, maybe there were more, like 80s, 90s, there was definitely more single moms, what I'm saying, the hood and stuff like that. But then like you go different, because Cleveland social economically, there's a lot of variance. You go to certain, neighborhoods and schools and stuff, and it's all the dads is there. So I do think that's like when we talk about capitalism or social economic background, there is that. And like, I grew up with people who were white who went to my school and they ain't have fathers either. So
I really think that narrative of the absentee black father is true in a lot of ways, because our communities have been decimated by crime laws, drugs, and just the socioeconomic positions that we've been in since emancipation. But damn, I lost my train of thought. But nowadays I feel like we killing it. Like the best fathers that I know, man, it's like I see them and the things that they're doing, the way that they're treating their kids. It's like, that myth needs to be abolished. Like all of my favorite homies are incredible fathers, inspired me to do better. We're breaking down a lot of these tropes of masculinity and what the role of the black father should be in the family, and helping our kids out in a lot of different ways, man. I'm super. Yeah. I look at Paul, and I almost made a post about this the other day, but then I thought it was too sentimental. I was going to say, man, I don't know what it is, but you and Shucks, like I see what y'all do with your daughters, and I'm just like, yo, those fools are really killing it when it comes to raising their kids. The way you just be like, yeah, we do book nights, we reading this and that. Shucks got a whole damn classroom in his house. You know what I mean? Like
the man got the classroom.
And both of y'all some old hippity hop heads, like some old school cats from the real culture. And I see that, man, and it's dope to see. We really killing it.
Yeah, I'm concerned though. Bernie said she got to. It seems like it's a cycle, right? It's going back. You said
no, because that's the thing. I have a lot of thoughts going in my head, but like I recognize your point, Mega, in the sense of like we gotta abolish it, but I think it can only happen if there's more like fathers, and not just fathers, because not all fathers are good fathers. Because I remember I was part of a conversation where how like a lot of families stay together for the kids, but they didn't show a productive non-toxic relationship. So just because they're fathers and they may be going to a games does not mean that they're being a good father at home. So that's also something that I'm thinking about, like as I'm like looking for partners and stuff like that, but also too like I'm not trying to generalize, because like obviously not every single person in my age range is the same way, but what I'm noticing is there are a lot of men who are either just thinking about sex or not necessarily caring about relationships in the long term way, or like they think toxicity is what makes the relationship. And I'm seeing that both men and women. I'm not going to only say men are, not necessarily ready for kid or family or whatever, but I think that like because my generation and maybe a little bit older or not, like had grown up either in toxic families or had no father figure at all, we don't know how to be like good parents. And I think it's a learning curve that every single generation, until we foster as a community better parenting, we won't necessarily eliminate that until we do that. So I don't know if it's a cycle and reverting back to, but I think it depends on like where we're looking at, like in terms of location, who we're looking at in terms of like socioeconomics. But there are a lot of guys out there who even older than me, like 30 years old, who still don't really know how to be a father, or they're still in the toxicity age, or like they could be a good partner, but once the kids come in, they have a different side of them because of like, again, gendered expectations. Still finds a way to like mizzle through. I hope my English is coming out. I'm tired, but um
I get it.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. Cause I learned because it wasn't there. I just do the opposite. I think
right.
like for me, and having those other relationships, plus like even now, I obviously lean on my friends and talk to people, but I had to really unlearn a lot of stuff. I was in the relationship like, this is my wife, and she was like, why you keep calling me your wife? And it was like, well, you're my wife. She was like, but you ain't got to say it every 5 minutes. So we had to have those conversations, and then we didn't have kids like first 10 years. We didn't have kids. And then we only have one kid. Like I was saying, for having multiple kids versus having one kid is tough. It is a lot.
Completely different ball game.
Yeah, it's like on another level. And then however your kids, learn, or any disabilities they may have, like anything like that all factors in. And on top of you not being about your family, because like I'm even also too, I'm cool with my wife's family, so if Maya need to do something, I'm like, go to your grandma's, or go, your uncle can do this, you know what I'm saying? And so I do think that is a thing of community too, because we do need more than just like the father and the mother to raise the kids.
Yeah,
And
that's a
maybe,
very recent thing. Yeah,
yeah,
like
maybe
that.
maybe in Japan too, and not to make excuses for these fathers, some, but if you living close to your family, because I don't see that as I'm seeing more people not living close to their families. Like we've had
Yeah,
some kids come to our house, like my wife worked with the beach volleyball team, and some of the families have separated and divorced, whatever. And the kids be at this house. They be with us. Be like, man, we your family, we your uncles, aunties, like you the uncle now.
you do.
I,
Yeah,
I see Maurice bringing up like good questions
Oh
in
yeah,
the chat here. Like we're talking a lot about the role of what is a man, what is the role of a man, what is the role of a man in a family, and it brings me back to the idea of the controversy behind the Black Lives Matter statement about the abolishment of the nuclear family. And maybe you remember his name, Paulie, but who was that NFL defensive lineman who's a commentator now that said that he didn't support Black Lives Matter because their position on abolishing the idea of the nuclear family, and he was very critical of it because Marcellus
yeah,
Wiley,
yeah,
and
yeah,
it's like, the conversation we're having is coming from a very specific kind of viewing of what the role of what gender roles are in a family structure, and these definitions of man, and it does require a lot more nuance. But I hope that the people that are listening to us acknowledge that we're just talking about a very specific aspect of a family dynamic,
yeah,
because there's a lot to be said about it. And you guys know that I won't even get into it too much about my ideas about some intersectional politics, postmodern intersectional politics, I should say. But I think that question that Maurice brings up what is a man is an important question to ask in relationship to the roles and the things that need to be done when raising children.
Yeah, I mean, because like I think about in San Francisco being a teacher and being, you know, having households, different households, like two fathers, two mothers. And I can think of a kid that I taught him coach basketball, and he got two moms, and they killing it. And I think that, yeah, I mean that there is that, and there we have to maybe expand that on another session because that would take forever. But yeah, just specifically to the video, you know, obviously that family is set up where there is a father and a mother, and I think people should, you know, just, you know, be like in that case. And Japan is dealing with that too, because, you know, this idea, yeah, Terry Crews, yeah, this idea of what a family is, because even like in our family, I'll be like this kind of jewel. My wife is not Black, obviously, but my wife lived in Cleveland for almost 20 years around mostly Black people, and that's like a whole nother thing about like when you are in the middle, right? You're not Black or white, you have to choose. Specifically, like where we growing up, like or where I was growing up in Ohio, because it's so segregated. So when she came to the States, she was just trying to hang with everybody. Oh, I'm just hanging with Americans because that's how they treat us. You know, we all Gaijin, we're all foreigners. But when she got to the States, they was like, no, you got to pick a side. And so eventually she was like, I don't want to pick a side. And so she was like, I'm gonna go kick it with these people. And then naturally she just started to gain more Black friends and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm gonna keep it quick. So I do think that when we moved here, that was that thing, like we need a community. But because my daughter is, you know, Black and Japanese, I needed to build that community. And that community is, you know, obviously y'all, but also Black women, because there are things that I can't teach her. There are things that my wife can't teach her. And so my wife was like, yo, you need to engage more with some Black women. You need to get some friends, you know? And I was like, oh man, I need that. But I didn't grow up that way. So it's interesting. You know, I think community is maybe something that we can talk
You know,
about.
when I hear about like Maurice's kids, like, you know, the half Black kids who might have curly hair or more straight type of hair, man, I always like to when I see those kids, I like to shoot them a glance and send them telepathic messages of solidarity. And I love when I see those kids, because I like to, you know, especially if they with my people, I like to make sure that they realize that, like, yo, I'm a person too. I'm confident. I'm happy. We look similar, and you're going to be just fine. Like, because I think they need that. I grew up, it probably, you know, as like one of the only, I was only like Black and Filipino kid that I know whose dad had Seminole heritage and looked the way I did. And luckily I had, you know, California is very multicultural, but a lot of times I'm looking around like I'm the only one that's having this experience like this. Like I'm not like a Mexican cat. I'm not like a Black cat or a Filipino cat. I'm all these type of things that feels like a singular experience, but it ain't like that, man. There's a lot. And so I hope that, you know, all of our kids have, I hope it's easier for all of our kids. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
Word up.
Yeah. You gotta look at them. Bernie, when you come to Japan, just make sure to give them a nod. I see you. I used to do that on the train, especially in Nagoya, because we stick out. Yeah. Even if you ain't even, you know, if you a little bit dark, you stick out. I was like, and then the first time they'll be looking at you like, and then next time they'll know, they'll be like, oh yeah, that he just giving me some recognition. Like, I see you. Like, yeah.
Yeah, last weekend I did the same thing, man. Like, I saw two kids. We went to Ichigo Gari, and you know, I'm always, you know, I think we talked about it before. Like, I don't run up on people. If I see like kids that I know have a Black parent, it's always kind of like a tricky thing, because, you know, some people like kind of, you know, standoffish, you know, especially like close to the military bases. So I'm just like trying to send them like, you know, Terabashi. I'm like you here, like we here, like Black folk, like and they see my kids, it's like, okay, y'all ain't alone. So that's always, I think it's good to reinforce the fact, like Meg was saying, like sometimes that could be one of the biggest like weights on somebody's shoulders, like to feel that loneliness, like, or like just like, damn, like I'm the only one that's dealing with this shit. Like, like it sucks. And I don't want my kids to have to deal with that. So I'm always like on the lookout, man. I'm debating whether or not I should just contact people I know got like black partners or something like that, and be like, hey, or like black mamas, black parents in general. I'm like, yo, y'all want to play with my kids? Like, your kids want to play? Like, we should do a play date or something, because it's important, because
Yeah, you should
we
do it.
lost. Yeah, I should, but I mean, it's tricky now with the coronavirus and all that. People like kind of iffy right now, but like, yeah, like when all this calmed down, man, I'm definitely gonna be the guy that's embarrassing my kids. Like, yo, just go there and play with them. Go. Like,
Man, I do
Yeah.
that all the time. But yeah, Corona makes it hard because they get, you got your own little bubble, and then you can't. Like even Maya got some friends that's half, Black and Japanese. The father from Cameroon, and we haven't been able to see them just because they live in a different town. It's not so. I mean, it's close, but not so close. But we ain't in the same bubble, so it's even more distance. And I even got on my dude Dwayne in Osaka. We got on a Zoom. We was like Zoom play date. His daughter, because she was in the house, like just, and I was like Maya, and Maya's just kind of like, like, hey. But I think it's it's important to do that. But yeah, so I know we trying to stick with our 60 minutes, and so next time we're gonna talk about continue the conversation about fathers. And I think just experience, because we all got a various range of experiences with fathers, and some of our experiences are with absent fathers, and some of our experiences are not with absent fathers. But it sounds like we all got a very diverse background. I'd like to get more into that. But yeah, that's it. That was a good one. That's a good conversation.
Yeah.
I know